Oh, there's a lull in the cars as we are stood outside the Palantine. Hadfield Station is just across the road, and Hadfield Hall as well. A lovely little bench outside the War Memorial where I often come and sit and contemplate. But thanks for coming back. Today we are going to walk like the Romans. Well, kind of, anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Today I have someone who's coming to join us. It's a good start, isn't it?
It's going well so far.
This is what happens when you end up recording multiple podcasts over several days. Today we're going to look at through the eyes of archaeology, which is a word that I find very difficult to say and very difficult to spell.
Really? Okay, A-E-O.
It's a lot of A's.
It is, there is, yeah. It's from the Greek, don't you know?
Right, Tim Campbell-Green is walking with me today, and Tim is also one of the other Glossop Creates Pairings artists who we are both commissioned by to explore and celebrate the local area that we live, being matched with local organisations. So Tim is doing like a big dig in Glossop, which I guess we'll get a little bit more into, but really you should probably introduce yourself, sir. How do you describe yourself?
Archaeologist. It's a calling rather than an actual job, I have to say. I sometimes have students that work with me, and I always say to them, look, you're never going to be rich, but you'll never be bored if you're an archaeologist. So yeah, archaeologist, and I do other things. I have many different roles. I work in Dark Peak Books every now and then. I'm a house husband, a kept man, which is quite nice. And I amble around doing archaeological things.
Well, we are walking downhill of Station Road today. We're going to take a turning at Lambgates. So we're just passing. Station Road has a brilliant amount of history, which I will get into in another episode with Kate Raine from Glossop Heritage Trust. We're going to dig into the mills and some of the things that were along Station Road back in yesteryear. But we're really kind of looking at tracks. Mud, things in the mud.
Hopefully, who knows what we might find. I definitely haven't planted anything, honest. But no.
I actually really love going for a walk with Tim because I will look at stuff on the floor and think, oh, what a load of rubbish, load of rubble. Just like, it's a land tip round here. What have people put here? And Tim will whip up something out of the ground and go, well, this here is a piece of coal that fell from the train of the viaduct above in the 18-something.
You've no idea how true that is, honestly. And I bore people. I bore myself with it. Oh, there you go. Interesting. First bit of history. You see the EL carved onto the curbside next to the road.
So this is outside 91A Station Road and opposite Carmel Church.
It is indeed, yeah.
On the curb.
It's carved in the curb, and it is where, when the houses were electrified, probably in the 40s, 50s, the people doing the electrification of these houses and putting the supply in, they would carve EL where the cables are. So you can see here, and one behind you, and they're all the way dotted along. You quite often see them carved.
I do, yeah. That's like 21st century stonemason carving.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's pretty much it. We would use spray paint now. They came out with a hammer and chisel, which I find quite, frankly bonkers, really. It's brilliant.
One of the other things that I did learn from you was about benchmarking, and I did have to go and geek out and read about this. And I'm not sure if I've seen any around in Hadfield, but in Glossop you showed me they're like kind of an arrow upwards with a line on the top, and that marks something to do with the sea level?
Yeah, it's an exact point above sea level. When the first great survey, the Ordnance Survey map was laid out, what they did is they went round, so you've got sea level, which is dots, and then you measure distances away from it and up. And so what you end up doing is having this huge, great survey, and all these spot points are in exact height above sea level. The one just next to my house is 650, I think, feet above sea level.
Wow.
They're all over. You quite often find them. I'm just looking around, see if I can find some now.
Do you know what? I have been looking around Hadfield and I haven't. People of Hadfield, Tell us, have you got a benchmark on your house?
There must be.
Sounds like a phone-in. Call us now.
Call us now.
On 0800 benchmark.com. Right, okay, we have stopped at where the dentist is. Opposite is Tesco. There's a man pedalling on his bike. Very talented. Oh, he's had to stop now.
It's quite embarrassing now. He's looking
and I've never actually noticed until I stop. Beside the dentist is the mark which says public footpath.
Yeah.
Which is to the right down Lambgates. Is that where we're headed?
It's sort of Lambgates. It's marked as Lambgates on Google, but I'm not sure. It's more of a trackway. Now, the interesting thing about this is, and I'm going to geek out now, as you look behind you, so you've got Tesco, look to the left of Tesco, the road that goes up that way, which is
Kiln Lane.
Kiln Lane, I knew that, of course, goes all the way to actually Hadfield Hall itself, the big hall, which is 17th century. I suspect because Hadfield is meant...
The old house at the top where the cross was, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it.
I only know that because I walk past it often. I'm not that much of a geek.
Yeah, sadly I am, but I should know that.
You said I am a geek.
Yeah. But so that's the historic centre of Hadfield. So if you think about Hadfield was in the Domesday Book, that's what they were talking about when they mentioned Hadfield. So 1086, there's something there. Not that hall, obviously, but an earlier incarnation. The track comes down through Tesco, and we're about to walk on. It's a medieval trackway, or early post-medieval, if you want to be truly technical about it. So it's any time after, well, let's Henry VIII say.
What's that, 15-something? 14-something?
1509 to 15-something or other.
Well, okay, we got 15-something.
Yeah, we got 15.
I didn't do history. I did geography. What can I say?
So it's Lambgates Lane is what it's technically called.
So there's Lambgates and there's Lambgates Lane. And there's been a bunch of new houses that have been built here. And it's kind of slightly tarmacked, but not properly tarmacked. It's almost not a proper road, I suppose.
What's interesting about these tracks is, then it is kind of interesting, at least to me, it may be interesting to you, who knows, but is that they continue it's almost like a ghost, a fossilisation of these trackways. Because they're in use constantly, and then all of a sudden somebody builds a new road, these roads, although they fall out of use, they're maintained, they're still used by some people. So you end up, Glossop is absolutely full of them. And they're either preserved as footpaths, or as tracks. Some of them were actually then turned into proper roads, and we use them on a daily basis. But I just find it endlessly fascinating that somehow you can't keep this down. It bubbles to the surface, and it is constantly here. So, we're walking on 1,000 years of history here.
I mean, who would have been walking down here then in, the 1500s? Is it going to be like people doing trade or...?
Very much people doing trade, but also, if you think there's only one parish church in the area, which is Old Glossop, or Old Glossop as it is now, it was just Glossop then. So it's the only parish church in the area. So anybody going to church on Sunday, and everybody did go to church on Sunday, they would be walking this way. But also, if you think about, I think it's over that way, there we go.
So we're going to go right, when we reach the kind of T-ish junction?
Yeah, it is. You've got the new houses in front of you. We go right, and then it's go left.
By a fence. Okay, so it looks like there's a little path. There's a dry stone wall that we're kind of following to a green open area.
Yeah, we sort of. I probably should be, in the interest of being opaque. I've not walked this way before. I've only walked it on a map. So let's see what we end up with.
I mean, I have, and I discovered this section by accident, because actually, okay, I'll describe what I see.
Yeah.
I see like a tarmacked footpath that kind of gets to a T-junction. I see green grass. There's some lovely little trees around which don't have a lot of leaves at the moment. The sky's blue. I can see some weird kind of castle wall type thing which crosses a river in the distance, not too far away. What do you see, Tim? It's just that I feel like I need a jingle. What does Tim see?
We could totally do that. That'd be great. Right, so you've got an open space here. You've got to ask the question, why is the open space here? It's not really a park. It is just a bunch of grass. There's nothing here. There's a track that runs across. Well, that's fairly heavily used, but why is it there? Immediately in front of you, you've got two stones, okay?
Would it be a fence or...?
Well, that would be my thought, but then there's nothing to attach a fence to.
I mean, these stones, I'm just going to, I suppose describe them. They're about, bum height. Not quite waist height, I've got to say. They've got, they're just... I suppose they would have been, very old... marker stones or something. What can you see on these that I can't?
It's a gatepost. If you look on the other side of it, you can see the remains of lead work and metalwork in it, and that's an old-fashioned way of attaching hinges, for example. So what you do is you would hollow out with a chisel an area, you'd put your piece of metal in, and then you'd pour molten lead in, and that would solidify and keep your hinge in place, or your lock.
Why would there be a gate here, though? It just seems like it's like in the middle of the path going nowhere.
Well, that's a really good point. Why? What's going on? So you've got to then peel back all this modern stuff and have a look and think, well, what was here? So you can use map work. The old maps are all available online. Or you could, do what we do and have a wander around, have a look at field positions. If you look, there is another gatepost just over there at the corner.
Yeah, that's more obviously a gate.
But you can see the lead quite clearly.
Yeah, when you come the other side to the path, it's there.
There's another one up there as well. Now, I wonder if that's something different. We'll have a look at that in a minute.
Oh, who knew? And there's obviously a river, a brook. Not a river, really. It's a brook, isn't it? There's a bridge to the left. But I'm really intrigued about the kind of the castle-like crossing over here. We're going to walk towards the drill, I suppose, but... This is obviously, we've just got to the T-junction, and this is obviously a gatepost, because I am tapping there on the bits that stick out, and no one's moving those after, however many, 500 years or so.
Probably less. More likely to be about 200, 150.
How do you know
that? The use of cast iron, they wouldn't have done that before 1700, 1750.
Back in my day.
It feels like it. No, and also the technique of using lead, pouring lead in like that is very early Victorian.
Right.
There we go. There might be something on the other side, so I'm just going to have a quick look.
Okay, right.
Gateposts, because they don't move very often, you quite often find benchmarks on. Or you'll find people graffiti them, so they'll carve their names in using stone and chisels and what have you. So they're always worth looking at if you're that kind of person that looks at gateposts. They're always worth a look.
Well, it's interesting you say about the graffiti, because as I've walked along other parts of the reservoirs, IWB seems to be a common graffitied initial in this area. The most I could find was it was someone called Isaac Walter Bolton. Have I got that person right? It's like an IWB was here back in the day or something.
I know nothing about the man except what you found out, in a sense, in that it's some random bloke in the Victorian period or slightly earlier, just graffitiing his name. I was here, essentially.
I mean, there was one particular post I found near Salters Brook, which I did an episode where I went back to the source of where the River Etherow begins, and there was IWB. So we're coming up to the bit now where the crazy castle-like wall, I can't think of any other way to describe it. There's a brilliant, beautiful tree. I looked at this particular area as a place to come and paint, actually. But the wall looks very much like a Lego sense of dry stone wall. There's the brooks running through here. We're stood with the trees around me. There's lots of different pathways. What do you see here? What do you think this is?
The fact that there are lots of these pathways here, you ask the question, why? All of this could have been built over. That path there doesn't need to exist. And obviously we do preserve our footpaths very, very closely. We monitor them and make sure nobody builds on them. But there's dozens here. There's one going that way, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is like a meeting point of 5 different paths coming in.
There is another gatepost over in the distance there, and I do believe what is now Malvern Rise at one point was a mill, station mill.
Right, okay.
So I wonder whether that was the way that people used to walk from the mill to come back home or something. Yeah,
quite possibly. As I say, the roads are in use, they continue to be used, and as they are used, they become an established route, an established right-of-way. So they are preserved. Incidentally, we should have a look in the brook. You never know, you might find pottery here. It's a good place to have a look.
Okay, what's in the brook?
What's in the brook, people?
That's another jingle, isn't it, that we could do?
I mean, there are bits of pottery in there. You can see.
How can you see? I can't see.
Can you see the bright white thing over there?
Oh, I just thought that was a bit of rubbish.
Well, it probably is a bit of rubbish, but I would imagine it's made from.
You can say anything on a podcast, can't you? Really?
God,
look at all this pottery here.
Is that the Ark of the Covenant over there? Some gold coins glistening. We just don't know. I mean, brooks like this are great.
There's a bit of green there. I can see stone. There's something with a green bit.
That's like stone that's got green stuff on it. I mean, nice try and everything, but
right, okay.
no, seriously, these are great places to come and have a look. I'm all about the mudlarking. I'm all about the getting in.
What is mudlarking? Is that just larking about in mud?
You'd think, well, yeah, basically. No, it's traditionally it's done by people, certainly in London, by the very poorest of society. And they would try and find bits of coal or metal that they could sell to make a living. It's now done by people who are just interested in history. London, and the Thames in particular, around the centre of London, is full of history. So people find all kinds of stuff all the time. Check out it on YouTube. There's loads and loads of videos of people finding really interesting stuff. But what you can do, obviously we're not going to find wonderful complete Roman pots here. Oh, we might do, but you do find bits of pottery. You do find bits of decorated pottery, clay pipes, that kind of thing in brooks like this. Always worth a look. Manor Park is full of it.
Manor Park in Glossop?
Manor Park in Glossop is full of it.
Right, okay, and we're going to
your
cross
question
around
is-
the map. We're going to go up through one of the newer housing estates. I think we are heading towards Roughfields, aren't we?
That's the idea.
That's the aim. So,
And I'm just looking at a map trying to work out my way. But yeah, here's another gatepost.
all right, let's just
Let's
quickly
look-
see. Is
yeah,
there a
let's see the-
benchmark? I'm going to be so excited if we find our first benchmark. Nope.
If you really want to look for benchmarks, they're no longer marked on Ordnance Survey maps, but if you go onto the old Ordnance Survey maps, the National Library of Scotland, for example, has
How
a
old are we
lot.
talking?
They start about 1850, where they go up to sort of 18... I think actually the National Library of Scotland got them all the way up to the modern ones, but go for an 1880, 25-inch map, and it's got all the benchmarks marked on it. So you can look at it, and they are, as you say, it's a broad arrow with a line above it, and it'll give a spot height. It'll give a figure above that.
Right. So I don't know the name of this road that we're coming out into the newer estate. I know I have some friends that live up here, and I should really know what the name of the street is. But we are. Oh, here we go. It is Ellinger Avenue. So we're crossing over, and I never noticed that you can go straight up. And the footpath kind of goes straight through the middle of this. I think I know where this might come out. I think I've just enjoyed... The thing that I'm really enjoying about this project of walking in this way is I think you start to kind of map the area better, and you find all these little kind of cut-throughs.
Yeah.
These little kind of footpaths that are hidden behind the bits that you never really noticed. Particularly, if you just drive around the area, you definitely miss all these bits.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the way it starts to, all the kind of the blurry bits in my mind of this area, they start to join up.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. You only get to know an area when you walk it, and you only get to know it really well when you start looking, rather than sort of putting your head down and just eating up those miles. I infuriate people I walk with because I wander off and I have a look over here, and the people will be walking on talking to themselves as I'm up in a hedge or something. But yeah, it's these little places you would totally miss if you didn't walk them.
Yeah.
Especially if you were driving.
So the area of Longdendale, I mean, just how cool is it for archaeology?
On a scale of 1 to 10? I mean, it's
like
it's
a lot of people are like, there were things here like the reservoirs, the railways, but most people, I suppose, don't really think beyond that. But from what I'm learning is that there have been people living and travelling through this area for a very, very long time. Yeah. And are there still some of those things that we can find and see evidence of?
Yeah, I mean, since the glaciers retreated, in the last ice age, people have been here. It's a great hunting ground, for one. So once the land came back to life, people were here. And so you find it in the Middle Stone Age, the Mesolithic period, the hills around here are full of flint. And flint obviously being the most important tool or substance to these guys, because there's nothing else, there's nothing harder.
Yeah.
Flint provides a really good edge. You use it for hunting, for cooking, for cleaning, for all kinds of stuff. It's really important. And all the hills all the way around here are full of this. So moving on from the Middle Stone Age, you've got the New Stone Age.
Yeah.
All kinds of interesting stuff in the Neolithic. There are vague hints at monuments. The Neolithic period is the time of great monument building, and we get all sorts of barrows and other bits and pieces. So these are burial mounds. And then Bronze Age, we've certainly got Bronze Age stuff around here. Bits and pieces. If you go onto the historic environment record for Derbyshire and put in this area and search this area, it's full of finds. Yeah, and then you get onto Iron Age, Roman. There's a lot of Roman here. Obviously, we've got Melandra Castle behind us. The Roman road goes through Longdendale, all the way up to probably Penistone. There should be a fort, or at least a fortlet somewhere around Penistone, but we haven't found it yet. And then, obviously, going the other way, you get Manchester and what have you. We should probably say where we are here, shouldn't we?
Oh yeah, well we've just managed to come out of where the houses are. We kept walking and following the public footpath, and now we've just got to a T-junction, which is just for pedestrians, and here we are at the lovely Roughfields.
Roughfields, yep. I don't know a lot about the history of Roughfields. What I will say is I know there was a house of some description here. It's marked on the early maps, and it's gone now. One assumes that it would probably, 17th, 18th century, the house. Maybe a little later, but it's big and seems to be quite impressive.
Well, I can show you. I mean, I have walked quite a bit around Roughfields. Like, I think I've mentioned in a previous episode, there's been a lot more attention about Roughfields in protecting it, in saving it, in using it. So I've come here myself just to kind of wander and explore, and you often find, dog walkers use this area, but I noticed that in several sections there's walls that go up that are buried, and then straight ahead there seems to have been some kind of like event that happened where people have put things in the trees, like coloured kind of ribbons and things. And I realised there's like a track. I wonder whether it was where they stored train engines or something. So shall we kind of walk along the wall and head towards the trees with the coloured things?
Certainly.
And see what you see? Because I just kind of noticed it and thought, I need to ask Tim. That also seems like a jingle.
Yeah, let's ask Tim.
Ask Tim.
No, it's good. I mean, you can see, the wall's quite clearly buried.
I don't know how old it is, but I
would suspect probably Victorian. I wouldn't imagine it'd be much older than that.
Because you almost I wonder whether there were houses on here and they were separated, or was it maybe like fields that were used for common land,
I think
for people to put their personal animals or something.
Yeah, I think it's probably that, actually. I'd say the big house at Roughfields was behind us, just where you come out, and it's now fully overgrown. You can see there's lots of bramble over there. That's where the house stood. I'm also looking at...
really? So at the bottom, so the opposite side to the wall, the bottom of the hill, really?
Yeah, essentially, there. I'm pointing like anyone can see what I'm pointing at. But if you're standing with our back to the buried wall, and you can see slightly in the distance is a children's playground, play area, but coming towards us, there's a big patch of brambles, and the house is probably in there. Brambles are usually a good indication that the ground is disturbed. I don't know when the house was pulled down, as I say, but I'm very aware of the fact that there's molehills in here, and molehills are really good because what they do is they dig underneath and push the stuff up. So you can quite often find. I know a person who found a beautiful Roman coin in a molehill once.
So, moles are an archaeologist's best friends.
But they're actually a complete nightmare because what they do is they mess up all the underground stuff. So it swings and roundabouts, really. Much of archaeology is.
It's like a bad marriage.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying nothing.
Hey, look, the wall there, can you even look at walls and say, well, I reckon that is 1756?
Do you know what? Not me personally.
I don't mean to put that voice on, that's not how you sound, but
I'm almost offended. No, there are people who can look at a piece of walling and go, yeah, that's clearly done in a medieval style or a blah, blah, blah. It's quite impressive. It's a little niche, even by my standards, that's a bit... even people like me who really obsess about pottery look at those with a raised eyebrow going, what's wrong with you? But yeah, honestly, the walls can be dated, but I suspect, given where we are, that it's probably a Victorian field boundary.
Yeah, and I imagine that, there might actually be a lot of people who have never really noticed that wall until they've probably stumbled over it. But, the wall goes all the way right across as well, doesn't it, to the right? So it feels like a square. It feels like a very substantial kind of rectangular, maybe square shape. But I do love walking the far side of Roughfields, just listening to the birds. I feel like because you're a little bit higher up above the trail, you can kind of get closer to the trees and really listen to the birds here. That's just one of those geeky things. I love how things sound. You look to work out how old things are. What a combo we are, hey? We need our own podcast series, just me and you, I think.
Do you know what? We could totally do it. Just rambling rambles or something like that we should call it. Just
well, I've got Longdendale tales, so let's do that one
yeah,
first.
we'll do that one first.
Let's go hyper niche. Right, we're coming up to the trees where there are these beautiful colours which just make you kind of stop and notice, and we're going to walk straight through the middle of these trees. They're kind of almost like an avenue of trees, I suppose.
It is very much an avenue.
And you'll see on the floor, it's almost like, I was thinking, is it railway sleepers? It's like a curb or something. Was there a road that ran through here? And again, I never really noticed, but it's because people have put these beautiful coloured ribbons that it made me come to this section. So it almost looks like a rectangle.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So like concrete maybe, yeah. Maybe a building, storage place. I mean, even the trees, they're not too old.
No, I'm trying to work out what kind of tree it is. There's no leaves, obviously, when we're recording this. It's March, isn't it? So there's not even any buds. I don't know, but yeah, I don't think they're old at all. And I wonder if they've been planted deliberately inside, because there are no trees like it outside. It is the only place that has trees in it, and it's a very clearly marked area. I honestly have no idea what this is. And it's concrete, so I don't think it's old in any way, shape or form. So there's somebody walking their dog may remember what this was once used as.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's step out of this concrete rectangle, which is clearly not from the 16th century. And we'll head towards where I was walking with Casa the other day, actually, where then we click into the Peak District National Park boundary. Again, the markers for the public footpath are there, and we're going to cross onto the old turnstile and walk down the hill where we start to see the beautiful reservoirs. Oh, Tim's found a molehill.
There's a piece of pottery, or actually, I think, rather disappointing. Oh no, it's that's a Victorian field drain. There we go.
What the? Can I just stop you there? It just looks like a bit of brown, like, I don't know, brick.
Well, I thought it was a brick, but it's right. Okay, so it's a stoneware. It's very grainy on the inside. It's quite muddy, so I can't show you. Not that anyone listening to the podcast can see. But it's about half an inch thick, and it's circular in section, you can see.
Right, I'm going to take a photo right now.
Right, here we go, right.
I'm not carrying that around. Okay, here you go. Tim and his pottery.
And yeah, it's field drain. A lot of these fields, obviously, we get a lot of water here. And the fields needed to be used, they need to be drained, so you get these pipes and the water comes into them and it's taken away. What? So, yeah, a lot of fields like this in particular will have these in great strips running across it. But of course they get broken up, break naturally over time, and then moles come along and dig them up.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. or Mrs. Mole.
Yeah.
I can't. Can you just hold the recorder? I've got to put my glove back on. It's too cold to not be recording without gloves. I mean, the sky is beautiful today. The sun has come out, but unfortunately, sun on a winter's day means it's cold.
Yeah.
Yes, I do love, as you get to this particular section, the view of the hills hits you, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
And you see there are quite a lot of clouds in the sky today, so you kind of see the shadows of the clouds on the hills, and they kind of ebb and move, and it's, you know, you blink and it's a different view altogether.
Yeah, no, it really is. It is. It's that kind of brooding is the word, isn't it? It's the, you know, and you see Longdendale proper, that you can actually see the valley at this point as well, which I really love. The V shape of it, and then the water at the bottom, obviously. So we're approaching, what's this, Hadfield Main Road, isn't it?
This is Hadfield Main Road. We're going to go through the old turnstile.
So we're still on the medieval trackway.
This is really?
Yeah, it's the same path. Which it's a bit difficult to see it now on a map, but you can see it. You can see it in the old maps very, very easily. Right. I should say about these turnstiles, there's about maybe 8 or 9 of them still left around Glossop, and I suspect they were put in place when places like Hadfield New Road were built. Okay, so they're probably 150, 200 years old, these things.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought they were quite modern. I mean, it's just brown, it's got 4 ways, you know, it's got a distinctive kind of edge where it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 lines on the outside.
Yeah, it's a bit too fancy for the local council to put in. This is not something that they would do. It's cast iron again, so it's not... that's a good noise, actually.
Yeah, I love a good gate ceremony.
But yeah, there's 2 underneath Dinting arches. There's a couple around the reservoirs at Swineshaw. There's one on Road. Let's just say a road. We'll fill this in later.
Some kind of road.
Some road in somewhere in Glossop. But I think what they're doing is they're stopping people using these old trackways and forcing people carrying stuff like horses and stuff like that to get off and get onto the main roads to avoid using the older roads. Certainly when the turnpike roads were put in, because obviously people made money that way.
Right.
So there we go. We go through this.
Go through the turnstile.
I love these things. They're great.
Yeah. Open the gate. Oh, there's no sexy sound of gates here.
Oh, that was. It creaked.
One of the jobs I got many moons ago, I used to work at the BBC, and for a little while I got a chance to work on The Archers on Radio 4, and I saw how they did some of the sound effects. My favourite one of the gate was using an ironing board. They had several different sized ironing boards that would create different gate effects.
You mean you're telling me it's not all filmed on location in a farm?
Couldn't possibly say. So this particular path, whilst there's a lovely new fence, there obviously was at some point an old wall.
Yeah.
And we're walking through the molehills that I saw with Casa the other day. They're still here.
What's interesting about the molehills, if you have a look, it probably won't be the same when you're listening to this, but they're all following a line.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they're all a line on
Got a wall, one side.
Yep.
I mean, it sounds like wall to the left of us, molehills to the right. Here I am.
Fill in the blank. I've got nothing. But what that's saying though is that the moles can't get through on the path because the path is surfaced. Underneath the soil there is a crushed stone surface. So the moles aren't coming through that. So they're just trying to get under, and where they can, they go and they're running alongside to the right hand side of it.
Wow. So this could be a great one. If in Tim's imaginary world, you would just clear the soil until you got to whatever was underneath.
Absolutely, yeah. Come on, let's do it, people. Let's do it. No, don't do it. Don't do it.
No.
We'll all get in trouble, so let's not. But yeah, it's the sort of thing. What you're walking on is you're literally walking on history, and it's here, it's just below the surface. So just before we get to the brow of the hill and it starts to go down, you can see how deeply worn the path is, and that's a sign usually of a very old path. Especially on hills, because as you walk up a hill you dig in, and what that does is it wears the path a lot more. Animals in particular will wear a path very quickly, but you can see it's all U-shaped, and actually very much the older path, and there's a couple around Ashes going towards Shore and Dinting area. Yes. That are extremely deep. I mean, we're talking up to 10 feet deep, and it's just worn by people.
Wow.
And water has obviously contributed to it, but by and large it is it's people.
All right, well, we'll carefully navigate the muddy path with lots and lots of different stones. It's pretty uneven, and a public footpath sign has fallen over the old path.
Now the path here now forks. So we should talk a little bit about this.
It forks?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, so actually, there's a kind of a muddy track where, I mean, it almost looks like a motorbike has kind of scored through the fields, and there's just gulls and sheep just all hanging out in the same place.
Yeah. So the path here, as I say, the fork, one of the things I found wandering around looking at these old tracks around Glossop in particular, is they're often marked by a holed stone. So that's a stone standing, again, bum height, give or take, depending how tall you are, obviously, how big your bum is, who knows. But it's got it has a hole in the top of it. It may be that some of these were actually old gateposts. There is a particular type of gatepost that has a hole in it like that, but largely they're at junctions in paths, and I suspect it'll either have a name post stuck into it, or just a big stick saying you can go this way as well as straight on.
Yes.
And it's funny, I looked at this, I was looking around at this place, and I'd been to this point before, and I was thinking, well, there must be a marker stone here. If you're going right towards Deep Clough, and left, and we'll talk about this in a minute, onto Tintwistle, where's the whole stone? And as I walked up and I walked along the wall, you can see the whole stone broken in the wall itself.
Where we are now?
Yeah, so if you're facing the reservoir, turn to your right.
So we're not even at the bottom, by the way, where the main path takes you to the water.
Yeah.
We're halfway up the field.
Yeah.
Turn to the right, there's all the broken wall stones.
And actually there's a grooved stone immediately to your right. That's been carved out, and I suspect that's a windowsill from an old, very, very old house.
What?
Or a door sill, with the insert will be put into it. it's difficult to describe spoken, but you could see it in the picture. But that's
To my world.
yeah, it's really quite a talent to be able to do this. Yeah. But yes, there's the groove stone. That's clearly deliberate, and it's the local millstone. You can build houses out of it. That's what that is. It's reused rubble from a house, as indeed I imagine most of the stone is. Big piece there, which I think is the top part, to this bit here.
Oh, goodness me,
Which
Tim.
is the whole stone. And you can see it. Hang on, let's see if we can pull that out.
There's something in the middle of the hole. It's no longer a polo, and
go.
then Tim's just made it a polo.
So,
Other mints are available.
it goes all the way.
Wow, oh my goodness, Tim, I have walked this so many times. I would never have looked for a stone with a hole in.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love doing though. I love sort of saying, look, it's all around us. Have a look for your whole stones, ladies and gentlemen.
So, hang on, what would you call this? I mean, do you just say it's a stone with a hole in it? What did you say it was?
A whole stone?
But it's basically
It's a marker stone.
A marker stone.
Yeah,
right.
it's a way marker. So when you would come across one of these, you'd know that, okay, the path splits here. So you go down to Tintwistle and right to Deep Bluff. Or back the way you come back to Hadfield and on to Glossop.
Wow. Gosh. Well, I will never ever walk this particular track through the same eyes. I'll always have to come and say hello to the Holy Stone.
The Holy Stone. Maybe we'll put little offerings in there.
Well, we'll take a photo of this and I will pin this to our map. I would definitely say go check out longdendaletales.co.uk over the next month or so. We're starting to fill in the map with lots of these pins of photos, of stories, of poetry, of newspaper articles from times gone by, and I definitely will put a photo of this particular holy stone. We're going to leave it there for this episode, but I think we have already said that me and Tim have got plenty more to talk about, so Tim will be making another cameo appearance for a future episode, if you're up for that, Tim.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always.
Well, I'll just chill here for a few seconds as we let the end credits roll, and these are the days where I love the reservoirs. I'll just paint the scene as we kind of finish off here. You know, the water is in front of us, the sun is shining behind us, and we can see our shadows really tall on the ground in front of us, on the mud and the holy stone and all the rocks. You know, the trees haven't got their leaves yet, so they just look brown and grey, and the clouds are forming their shadows, slowly moving over the hills of Tintwistle Moor in front of us. And it's just so peaceful and still, but oh so cold. Oh, these are the days that we love to do these winter walks. I'll leave you with that picture in your mind, and I'll see you for another day.